Basically, what I wanted to speak to you about today was one of the biggest challenges, not only for ASEAN, but for the whole world. And that's the issue of corporate governance. Now, you might say to me, corporate governance doesn't affect me, but I can assure you in your daily life, corporate governance does. In fact, public governance does. All sorts of governance affects you. This is something that I feel that perhaps when I go through the slides, if you have any questions, you can ask us afterwards, or if you feel you wanted to speak to me privately afterwards, I'm very happy to take some questions. The first part of my presentation, I'm just going to talk to you a bit about the ASEAN region, and I'll go briefly because I know that the previous speakers have covered this. Then I'm going to talk about the importance of governance and give you a case study, and then the different levels of governance in the region. So for the investment opportunities for Indonesia, these are basically some of the key areas that if you're in this industry or you're looking to get into this industry, there are opportunities. There's a huge population, so the domestic consumption market is huge, very resilient, and as previously explained, there are huge financial reforms going on, and also the requirement for infrastructure. If I go into Malaysia, these are some of our natural resources. Philippines, one of the big growth areas which is driving the Philippine market, is the huge remittances that are coming in every month. And of course, their BPO systems. And their lower dependence on exports now. In Singapore, it's really a financial services and pharmaceutical, biomass. These are all the areas that they're focusing on. Thailand, petrochem, tourism, health. Okay. When I talk to you about governance, how many of you invest in a stock market? Anybody? Nobody? In this entire room? Who are we kidding? We're talking about governance here. How many of you have a stock? How many of you have bought a stock? How many of you own a stock? How many of your parents own stock? Come on. I'm not going to ask you to do a Q&A. I just want to know so you'll appreciate my next topic. How many of you have stock? Thank you. Okay. Now, I want to tell you a story. I've been managing money since 1988. And in those days, things were very different as they are today, but some of the corporates still do the things that we prefer they didn't do. Now let me take you through this slide. If you look at the 18th February 05, you will see they've announced spectacular profits. Great. Maybe, and if you look on at the price, it was probably about $9. And everybody was saying, this is a fantastic stock, please go and buy it. Then you look at the 07 results, and you look at the 06 results, you think that you're on a winner, an absolute winner. This is a fantastic company. Now, at the price of about 14 ringgit, a very major broking house, merchant bank, put out a buy recommendation that the stock is worth 17 ringgit. Okay? They did a massive placement, and for those who are not sure what a placement is, that's normally when a broking house will give a huge amount of shares, or say, I have available for sale a huge amount of shares, and I'm giving you it at a reduced price. Normally it goes to institutional investors. So this wonderful broking house, merchant bank, put out this placement to one of the largest funds in the world from the US. After they did the placement, they then decided that, actually we're going to downgrade this company. We're going to say that it's actually not worth 17 anymore, it's worth 10. They then went on to say, no, actually it's not worth 10, it's worth 6, and now we're not going to cover it anymore. We're stopping coverage. And if you look at the chart, they missed a deadline for submission for audited financial statements. That is a huge warning signal for everybody in this room. Please pay attention when a company does that. Then there was a special audit. The CEO then relinquished all positions and the chairman resigned. The stock is now practically worth nothing. Now, if you were an investor, what can you do? What do you do? What happens if you took the price, or you bought it at $14, right at the top there? What do? Your hard-earned money is now worth nothing. You've invested it because you believed in this company, you believed in the results, you believed in what this company was saying. And this is the basis of corporate governance. You're buying on belief that what they're saying is true. So when you look at governance issues, at least when we look at governance issues, there are certain areas that we focus on, and this is not just for Southeast Asia, it's all over the world. There comes into points of bribery, there's corruption at all levels. And corruption doesn't even have to just be money changing hands. It can be remuneration in kind. It can be things like buying airline tickets for your entire family to go to Switzerland. I know people who buy washing machines, all sorts of things. Fraud, non-disclosure of material information. This is something that's very important, or even trading on material information. The word material information means that the information is material, i.e. it is important, it makes an impact. This is something that you must pay attention to. One of the areas that we look at when we invest is, of course, overpaying for acquisitions. This is when a lot of companies get naughty. They use your money because you are now an owner of this company, although maybe a small owner, but you're still an owner, and they start paying for things at prices that they shouldn't. And my all-time favorite is awarding contracts to family members and friends. It just continues and continues and continues, and you see these, what we call related party transactions, all the time. And the other issue is, of course, speculative trade. Sometimes you see companies going into areas that they shouldn't be, and it becomes speculation more than investing. So when I talk to you about governance, if you look at the different areas, within the region, there are certainly different levels of governance codes, okay? So you have to pay attention. If you start looking at the region and the challenges in investing or working, this is something you have to pay attention to. One of the good things is that our accounting rules are mostly in line with international standards, so that's a good thing. Now, this issue, online media, I was speaking in London very recently and also talking about the different levels of governance in the region. And one of the issues that really caught the eye of the Ivy League universities was our online media. I'm not just talking about in Malaysia, but I'm talking about the development of it. Now, what the online media has done, it has actually put some companies or personnel within companies to be much more mindful of what they're doing, because there are quite often leaks within the companies, and they will leak it to the online media, and then information is released. And it puts those people who are doing the wrong thing a bit more worried about what they're doing, which is a good thing. One of the problems we have is, of course, weak institutional voting culture. That is, those institutions who own the shares are not actually voting for the right things. And also the other thing that is not consistent within the region is the disclosure of how much these employees or the executives are being paid. And the sad bit is weak and selective enforcement. Now, if I take Indonesia, they are trying to break out of their bribing culture. It is still quite significant there. Unfortunately, Bapepam has now dropped its English website. They don't have a mandatory code of governance, but they are trying to go into comply or explain. Malaysia, unfortunately, we are a box-ticking mentality. I don't really feel that the corporates are adopting governance in the real sense of the word. The regulators are, however, taking the lead in the reforms. Some companies don't publish their results within 60 days. And one issue is that the major shareholders can nominate an independent director. Now, you may say, who cares about independent directors? Well, let me tell you, the independent directors are supposed to be your check and balance in the company. They are the ones who are supposed to say to the corporates or the management exactly what is going on. And so it's very important that we have good independent directors. And I hope that all you young people in this room will one day be those new independent directors who demand and require more explanation with what's going on in these companies. And don't just sit on the boards and hope that you can get your remuneration for being a board member, but actually be a useful board member. And that will change corporate Malaysia, that will change corporate ASEAN. And that's very, very important. The Philippines, the new government is determined to make changes. They have dropped quite considerably in terms of their governance levels. At the moment, only 20% of their board needs to be independent. And their release for their AGM meeting notices is 28 days compared to 14 days. And what this means is that they actually give you more time to prepare for your AGM. I hope that all of you as shareholders actually go to your AGMs. It is very, very important that you go there. It is very important that you ask those questions that you want to ask. Somebody said to me, can they chuck you out? No, they can't. You're a shareholder. I mean, don't go there and be disruptive. Have your questions and ask your questions, but go. It is very important to show that you're really interested in how the company is managed. Because if the company is well managed, you make more money. Now in Singapore, the SGX is amending rules to enhance disclosure, and the independent director is not required to be independent of the controlling shareholders. And I hope this will change, and poll voting is still voluntary. Thailand is moving very fast to try and improve their governance standards despite the political situation. They were the first to issue poll voting as opposed to show of hands. There's huge progress in the regulatory environment, and they've amended their listing rules. And the beauty of this in Thailand is that now minority shareholders can propose agenda topics at the AGMs. That means people like you or me, smaller shareholders, can actually go into an AGM and say, you know what, I would like to propose this to be put on an agenda, which is a very important development, and I hope to see more of that. So my last words is that it is very, very important that you find people who have alignment with interest and integrity. And as you know, we are a village out here, and like in every village, you need a good guide. So what I ask from all of you is that when you invest, start looking at the issue of integrity and look at the issue of governance, because this is how we are going to build the ASEAN region to be a very, very forceful and a region that we have to compete with. Thank you.